sometimes 3,000 feet of its height. Debris from the landslide has been found on the ocean floor as far as 80 miles away. In some ways, I would have loved to have actually seen something like that happen with my own eyes. You know, it's got to be incredibly devastating. Obviously, there were no human beings on the islands then. They only arrived about 1,600 years ago. Looking at the Pololu and Waikio valleys today, we know that the cliffs that make the sides of the valleys were cut by fast-flowing streams, but the cliffs that face out into the ocean were caused by the landslide. There's also evidence that another massive event may have happened to Kohala. This one, 120,000 years ago. Marine fossils have been found on the slopes of Kohala at the elevation of 200 feet above sea level. From dating of the fossils and calculating the rate at which Kohala has been wearing down, they've worked out that the marine fossils were first washed up onto the slope to a height of 500 feet.
I don't understand. Are we by the ocean or are we going?
Well, timing seems to match another huge volcano collapse into the ocean, this time from Mauna Lea. The theory is that the collapse caused a huge, gigantic, pick your own word, tsunami that wrapped around the island so big that the water pushed up coral reefs and debris at least 500 feet up onto the side of the volcanic mountain. Geologists also suggest that Mauna Loa could potentially experience another collapse of this magnitude and generate another mega tsunami. I'm not going to worry about it, though. There'll be a lot of seismic activity before this happens.
Cows.
Yep.
Oh, so many of them. I don't even know how many they have. I think they just outside all the time. Walking around.
Just look like a perfect place for happy cows. If you drove around the island circle with me, then you will have heard some of these stories before, but it's important to provide the background to all my talk about cattle country. Hawaii, and the Big Island in particular, is home to some of the biggest and oldest cattle ranches in the United States. And I'm including Texas in that, y'all. 25% of the land on this island is used for cattle ranching. The entire industry can be traced back to a single event. George Vancouver was a midshipman with Captain Cook for 2 of his voyages. Now, as a captain in his own right, he returned to Hawaii.
Open land, isn't it?
He arrived in 1794, and having befriended King Kamehameha, he gave him 1 bull and 4 cows that he had picked up in California.
What?
The
Cloud
cattle
going
had not
across
done
the
all that
mountain.
well on the journey,
Yeah.
and were thin and sickly. Kamehameha was enthralled by the cattle, and immediately put a kapu on them. A kapu is a law or decree that was absolute, and to break a kapu could result in death. The cattle were allowed to graze back to health, and then some, and nobody was allowed to touch them. Over a period of 25 years, the cattle numbers were out of control, and by the 1840s, there was estimated to be around 25,000 wild cattle roaming the island, and sometimes causing havoc, trampling and eating crops, and sometimes even stampeding over people. Palmer Parker was the first person on the island for whom the kapu on cattle was lifted. Kamehameha liked John Parker, and when he came back to Hawaii after the War of 1812, he had the latest in bayonet technology. Kamehameha granted him permission to shoot some cattle and 2 acres of land with which to work. Parker set about slaughtering some cattle and salting the meat. This product was welcomed by sailors arriving in Hawaii, and it soon became an important part of the small island economy. Over time, and partly thanks to Mr. Parker marrying his way into the Hawaiian royal family, and with many land purchases once that was allowed in Hawaiian society, Parker Ranch grew and grew, reaching a staggering 225,000 acres at its largest size. In 1992, 6th generation Parker descendant Richard Smart died and left the bulk of his estate to the Parker Ranch Foundation Trust. The will was challenged by disgruntled relatives and disinherited heirs, but the Parker Ranch Trust was upheld, and the organization manages the work of the ranch today. The operation today manages 130,000 acres and includes 850 miles of fences to maintain. The ranch owns somewhere around 25,000 head of cattle. Though not all of them are appreciated.
Yeah.
I'll explain more about that ahead.
What?
It's pretty.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting wet. It's real green is.
Oh wow, the roads are pretty wet too. Yeah. What's that orange sign? What? I see an orange sign.
You're worried about today.
I'm not worried. I'm just...
The kapu on harming the cattle that was gifted to Kamehameha remained in place until after his death, though some special exceptions were given to John Parker. But with no management of the wild herds, the cattle became large in numbers and somewhat out of control. Kamehameha's second son, who was the 3rd king of Hawaii after his brother passed away on a trip to England to meet the king, so we'll call him Kamehameha III, sent one of his high chiefs to California, which was then still part of Mexico. He carried an invitation to several Mexican Spanish-speaking vaqueros, or cowboys, come to Hawaii to teach the Hawaiians how to handle large herds of cattle. In 1832, 2 vaqueros were sent to Hawaii to teach native Hawaiians how to become cowboys. The Hawaiians called the Mexican cowboys Paniola, which meant Spanish, and the name was modified for the Hawaiian cowboys they trained. Hawaiian cowboys called Paniolo. The tasks of the Paniolo are much the same as cowboys as you know them now. But the Paniolo have another unique aspect. Because they were working cattle in the upcountry and more remote areas, they were not influenced nearly as strongly by the missionaries, who condemned some of the original Hawaiian customs. The Paniolo maintained Hawaiian culture and gated housing community. One of their selling features is that you can choose the elevation that you want. Lower being hotter and sunnier, higher being a little cooler and more likely to experience some relief from the sun and more cloud overhead in the afternoons. Well, says the mountain side entrance to the property is the medium force mountainside. I thought that might give you some scale of the size of some of the ranch properties. Cattle, drive, and covered hills of the Kohala Mountains. So do some other animals that were brought to the island. Introduced animals don't have any natural predators in the wild. So in time, they can grow into wild and feral problems with a very destructive effect on the environment. Pockets of animals still remain in remote areas, although near the Saddle Road. You might see wild donkeys, pigs, and goats. The pigs and goats are especially destructive. Several local outfitters organize legal hunting trips to keep those populations down.
What?
I think this is the way it rains here a lot. Just in this wet. Come on, we missed you, guy. You're not talking anymore.
We're just about to reach the summit of this leg of our drive, topping out at 3,564 feet. I hope we're not in a cloud layer, because when it's clear, the views are outstanding. You'll see a sign for a scenic pullout just up ahead. I recommend that we take the turn in and take a look around. If it's clear, we should see all the way down the coastline looking south. But fingers crossed that we can get a big eyeful of Mauna Kea too. Then it's downhill from here on in.
Why is it raining? I won't be able to stop at this thing.
No.
Sucks.
Well, you're up on a mountain now.
Yep.
See, we didn't supply a mountain this trip.
I know.
Sorry.
It's okay, it happens. I always like those radio towers on the mountain too, because I see one around the corner.
What do you like about it?
They just kind of look, like, I don't know, kind of, yeah.
Did you hear about breakfast now? Yeah, he just did it again. Hey, stop it. Was that you, Tom?
But that wasn't me.
Talia. We're at the summit that means we go back down.
I think.
Where are the ranch houses from? Oh, sometimes you're up in the clouds.